What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My review of Arcade1up's Marvel vs. Capcom cabinet. So I've had this thing for about 3 weeks. I've got some thoughts, mostly good, some bad. And I know some of you are thinking, this is $500. Is it worth the price of admission? Let me see if I can help you make that decision. Alright, let's start with game selection. You have Marvel vs. Capcom, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and what's included on this cab that you don't get on the other is Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes, of course, but the inclusion of War of the Gems, I have no idea why this is on the cabinet. Nothing to see here, bub? Yeah, Wolverine. That pretty much says it all. Now, I really like the light-up deck protector, but after some use you can see you're basically highlighting all the flaws, from fingerprints and scuffs to the wear of the little joystick disc cover. I mean, check out the on-off switch. I've only had this thing a few weeks, mind you. I definitely love the inclusion of the light-up marquee, but unfortunately with this model there is an issue. Now, I'm not sure if this is a problem for all cabinets, but on my cabinet the actual transparency on top of the marquee is a little bit wider than the physical marquee itself, so when you press the sides together, when you assemble it, it actually bunches up on this side and on the other side. And the problem is that as you play, the air kind of gets behind there and it separates from the rest of the marquee. Now, I actually went in with a razor knife and had to trim this just a little bit. Now, when you do this, you run the risk of actually having a little bit of light bleed, and that's something that's just really unavoidable. Let me show you what I did to fix this. I used a small squeegee to sort of press out as much of the air as possible and held that in place while I used a razor knife to trim just as little of the film as absolutely possible. And of course, another thing to keep in mind as you're doing this, you don't want to scratch the black side that makes up the arcade cabinet. We don't want to scratch anything. You don't want to have any kind of surface that looks ugly, especially when you're talking about the marquee, because it's right there. It's eye level, and you know, because it's lit, you're going to see all the little flaws and imperfections. So take your time and be really careful. And of course, after you make your cuts, press it again with the squeegee, and you can see that little bitty piece that looks like a hair. That's actually about the thickness of the film that I had to cut away. So it's not much. It's just enough to keep that from bulging out and becoming a problem. Alright, let's repeat the process on the left side. I had a little bit of an issue over here just because maybe the way that I was holding the knife. I think I had a little bit more film that was sort of popping up there on the left hand side there. Once I get done with the cut, you'll actually see I had a little bit more light bleed than I wanted. Now once again, I'm just going back with the squeegee to kind of press that as flat as possible, and you can sort of see, you know, it's just a thin piece of film. You're not cutting off much, but even with that small amount, you can still sort of see in that corner, that close up, that I've cut off just a little too much, and I've got some light bleed. So going back to this corner, I thought, well, maybe I could just use a Sharpie and kind of fill that in. But it's such a fine point that even my Sharpie couldn't quite get in there. And you see it just kind of marks up the film. It doesn't really do what I wanted it to do. So it's kind of a failed attempt to repair my bad cut. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so overall, I really like this cabinet. These are my personal favorite games, and I think that's what it really comes down to. Do you like these games? Do you remember these games? Do you have the nostalgia? Or do you just enjoy fighting games in general? These are two great franchises, Capcom and Marvel, and it makes for just a great playing experience. The online play is actually really good. I'm on Wi-Fi in the office. I don't have the greatest signal in the world, and I seem to have little to no lag whatsoever. I'm not very good, but that's another subject. Now, with the subwoofer upgrade that I did on this cab, I really get that Q sound effect, you know, the old Q sound cabs from back in the day. So I think the only other thing that I would do to make this perfect is maybe change out the little speakers up top, maybe with some nice two-ways. But I would definitely get rid of that Super Nintendo garbage game, and I don't know, what about a little Alien vs. Predator action? I think Arcade1up really missed the mark. If they would have included Alien vs. Predator on this cab, it would have been known as the Versus cab. I mean, it would have been the perfect Capcom cabinet. So is it worth $500? Yes, I think it is. I think especially when you take into account you get the stool, you get the lip marquee. It does require a little trimming, but you do get the lip marquee. And the stool is a great height. I'm 6'1", and when I sit down, it just feels natural, it feels normal. And I actually find myself using the stool more than I thought I would. But those are just my opinions. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate you stopping by. Y'all have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.